Hey, Melissa,
Yeah,
I hear you got questions.
I have questions. I have questions about today, um, house systems, because as I'm studying to do more work with other people and continuing to deep dive into my own exploration of me and my people, close people around me, there almost every time I run a chart, like on any of the programs, and AI, which we can talk about it at some bookmark,
Yes.
bookmark. But almost every single time, the first rendering is with Placidus,
Mhm.
and because I've learned, I understand why, because it makes more sense and it's easier to get some concept of where things are. But why are people so attached to it? It feels very like religion, which I'm super anti. Like, this is
Mhm.
the way to do it. This is not the way to do it. So what are the different ones about, and why do you think people are so dogmatic about their attachment to different house systems?
I love this question so much, and you're going to see what I started futzing around with right there.
Okay.
Um, can you see my screen?
Uh-huh.
So this is the evolution of house systems. This image, I do not have its uh, origin. It
Okay.
does not have a signature file on it. I do have a record of exactly who this is, and the name is on the tip of my tongue, but I am going to get it wrong. So what I'm going to do is come back, and in the description, I'm going to give you the source for this exact graphic because it's phenomenal. And it was shared on his website as well as during the Astrology podcast, which of course has 10,000 hours of conversation about house systems.
Oh my
They always have such.
Astrology podcast?
Yeah.
Oh my God, how much do I love it? How much do I love Chris Brennan? How much do I love, I can't remember his,
So much.
and also I'm like, it's drinking out of a fire hose, but it's awesome.
Seriously. It's awesome. And it is daunting. Like, wow,
It's Nerdsville for astrologers. I
total
mean,
Roseville.
really.
Yes. It's a must. It's a must. I was a Patreon member for a few years with the Astrology podcast, so I could go to the live tapings and things that were incredibly important for me as an interactive learner and all that. I mean, yes, big fan. And also, it's a lot. So don't feel weird if you're like, oh, it's so overwhelming. It's overwhelming even to people who speak woo and speak astro specifically.
It's
Um,
Austin Coppock. That's the other guy's name, right?
Austin Coppock is usually
Okay.
his co-host
Yeah.
for the Astrology
Okay.
podcast, for the forecast episodes, but he also has guests on
Yeah.
for specific topics rather than just the month ahead. He being Chris Brennan does a elections, like
Mm.
electional astrology with Lisa Scheim, who's amazing. Okay, anyway, so
Yeah.
this specific graphic shows when each house system came into favor. And the reason Placidus is generally the default house system is because it's the most recent.
It's way down there. I had no idea.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. It
This
is.
was a good question.
This was a great question. This is a great question. Placidus is just the dude whose system we started using most recently. Therefore, let's keep using it. But people
Okay.
who do medical astrology will stick with Reggie over here, Reggio Montanus. Like that's the big one for us there. For medical astrology, whole sign, of course, the first, the original, the one that made everything equitable, that set everything, no matter where you were born. House system is the house system, or the house division is the house division is the house division. And by houses and signs changing at the same degree, there's no advantage or disadvantage to being born in certain places. When we started seeing other systems come in here, especially ones that are considered quadrant houses, which will skew the sizes of the houses and make, yes, there's still all these degrees to the sign, but now the signs start and stop in different houses, and some houses are really narrow and some houses are really wide, that became evident that geography played a factor. And the farther away from the equator you were born, the greater distance there would be between certain houses, because the rising, of course, based on the sun rising at the horizon, like there's a very specific geographical reason for the chart to look the way the chart does. And one of the things it started to do was advantage people born in certain places.
Right.
Which I don't know what you know about white supremacy worldwide,
Talking about.
but it's not new, and
No.
it didn't start here. It's long existed, lots of everywheres.
So it's a
And
more equitable chart. It's not a chart with as much of privilege as
whole,
much. Charts.
whole sign democratizes the chart.
Okay.
It makes where you were born not a geographic advantage or disadvantage.
Okay.
Whereas the quadrant-based systems, most of them do enough skewing based on the geography that it would create larger experiences for houses that show you're likely to be a king, or you're likely to have big business, or you're likely to conquer and win and have things that are yours property wise, as opposed to maybe having smaller houses there, which would mean that you are not to have as many opportunities show up in that space.
Okay. So whole house is like ancient wisdom.
The OG. Yep.
And it doesn't disadvantage anyone.
Geography is treated quite neutrally.
How may I part B this question?
Always.
Okay. So whichever ones we're looking at, Placidus being the one that I'm most familiar with.
Yep.
So in theory, we hope that people are not disadvantaged, that things are equal.
Right.
But since they are not, is there any value in looking at Placidus or other ones to see, like, because the reality is people are disadvantaged.
That's right.
Is there benefit in looking at that to see like the reality of what's going on
Yes.
in their
And
world?
yes, 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 yes. And I especially like taking a look at the Placidus version of charts when I'm looking at astrocartography, when I want to see someone relocating, or having a solar return chart and I want to know where is there going to be more emphasis. There are certain things that get really interesting in the details with that.
Okay.
And we got to remember, none of it changes the signs that your planets and placements are in. All it does is change how much real estate is covered in a house by that sign, by that experience. And so what I find fascinating with people is if they come to me and they were with me when I was doing Placidus, and because I grew up Placidus, like, because whole signs wasn't a part of the conversation again until Project Hindsight, which Chris Brennan was a big part of. They went and recovered ancient texts and translated them. And this is where they discovered things like annual perfections and the whole sign house system, and went, whoa, zodiacal releasing, things that people weren't using anymore. And they're like, we could start using this. Like, there's some really cool shit here. And so all of that had a resurgence starting in the late 90s. And so as that was being recovered in the early 2000s, that's when we started seeing things shift with all that. I know history, blah, blah, geek. Okay. But so the cool part to me is noticing when someone is open to looking at their chart through the whole sign system. I love seeing what it moves. Because for me, I was like, nope, I love my chart in Placidus. I do not need to see it. I didn't even want to check it because I didn't want to be told that I was suddenly something I didn't want to be, because don't you dare tell me that I'm something that I'm not. I'm not even going to use the names of the signs that I would throw out as a problem, but they are the ones that flank my rising and moon and Jupiter and Uranus. I'm like, don't tell me I'm either of those. And what I love that it did was it took Uranus from being a 12th house planet for me in Placidus and put it in the first house. And I was like, I love that that didn't happen until after my Uranus opposition. And sure as shit, my Uranus opposition, which happens for everyone around age 42, was when I really started taking that Uranus into my first house and making it part of
Mhm.
how I did my work and how I lead as a person. And I'm like, of course it was 12th house until then, because I wasn't ready for it.
It's like, as a therapist, looking at different types of theories and modalities, because you can come in and do CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. That works for some people and maybe in certain situations for certain amounts of time. But then you go, oh, let's look at internal family systems. And that reaches a different part of you. And then EMDR might show up and say, hey, let's work on some trauma. So it's really interesting looking at the house systems. It just from what I've learned from you, and when we first met, you did a rendering of my chart, and I believe the first one you sent me, even though we'd been learning in whole sign, I think you sent me the one in Placidus, but you were like, which one do you want? And I was like, whole sign, because because I don't understand this other one because it is not equal. It's not like
Yeah,
it's
it's weird. It breaks your brain, right? When you're first learning astrology, whole
yes,
sign's easier because then you're
it
not
is.
having to learn different combinations of
That's right.
possibilities. Yeah.
Was super confusing, but over the past 5, however many years, as I've gotten more comfortable with and as I understand more about, in general, astrology, and then specifically about my chart, I've pulled them both up, and it's so interesting because my moon stays in Taurus, but it moves to the 10th house.
Huge difference.
And my north node stays in Pisces, but it moves to the 8th house.
Huge difference.
And Jupiter remains in Scorpio, but it moves to the 4th house. So
Woo!
those are the only ones. I mean, I know that, some of the other degrees and all of that, but those are the main, those are the three that have shifted, but I see it.
Yes,
I
you do.
mean, I'm living it.
Right. And the thing is, neither of the charts is right or wrong. They are both accurate and they are both interpretations of the same thing.
Right.
Just like you said with the different systems that we can use in psychotherapy. We are discovering ourselves from all these different angles, and there are so many ways to look at the same configurations. And
Mhm.
that's part of what makes astrology so beautiful. I mean, and psychology based conversations in general are just so cool to me, because we're able to agree that it's going to be lived out in different ways depending on what else is going on, what's happening in our lives right now. I will always, if it's something really important, check it out in multiple house systems because I want to know, is it going to show up on the angles where I can't avoid it, it is really going to be loud in my life, or is it going to happen in the 6th house or the 12th house and somewhere that I can have a more subtle experience of it. And especially with some of the more problematic transits, that information is really helpful for me.
That's interesting. I didn't consider that because what that does is it moves two of them to the angular houses.
That's right.
Okay.
And that's always going to be what happens. And what you'll find is when you do look at charts in multiple house systems, or even just if you, those are the main two, the oldest and the youngest house systems, whole sign and Placidus, respectively. If you're just taking a look at those two by comparison, you'll notice some charts change very little and some charts change so much. And
Right.
you'll notice, especially the longer you work with people, that they're both right. they're
Yeah.
they're completely accurate. It's based on situation, time, what they've gone through in life. Are they on this side or that side of the Chiron return? All just big questions like that.
Can it be both and?
Exactly.
No, with everything, isn't it lovely to have multiple options and to not be adherent to one specific way of doing things other than just how you treat people and, you know,
And why do people get so butthurt if you tell them you use a different house system than the one they like? It's because it's like you're telling them that their favorite band sucks. They have lived an identity of, this is in my first house, damn it. And if you suddenly tell me it's in my 12th or in my second, we're going to fight.
Right.
Because you are telling someone a part of their identity with which they identify is actually not quite there, and then they don't have an excuse for the big personality or whatever. I have issues in my relationship because Chiron 7th house, I'm always going to suffer with it. And it's like, or you always suffer with it because it's 6th house and it never is gone away because it's every day, every day, every day. No,
Or
7th house, it happens in my relationships. Or
right.
yeah.
Same.
And nobody wants to be told you're wrong.
Well, and also, also it's possible that we're suffering because we're so attached to meaning,
Yeah.
attached to an outcome, attached to a reason, attached to an excuse, attached to a.
Wouldn't you say that's why even when people realize, oh shit, I'm a well-meaning person and I didn't even know the thing I was doing was not great for someone that I am not,
Yeah.
they're so mortified by that it's really hard for them to say, wow, I just grew, I just learned, thank you, that was hard, and now I'm going to do better. Like, it's so much easier for them to double down on
Right.
the original belief. I think as humans we can start to see more cracking open and allowing space for, oh wow, I just learned a thing, like that's okay.
Isn't that great that we can continue to learn? Some of us choose that, don't we?
Constantly, constantly. And we annoy the fuck out of those who really wish we would stop suggesting that they grow and change and be better. I don't know.
Related to house system, I will tell you, as far as attachment to things, I thought I was going to fist fight someone when they told me I was a Virgo.
Oh,
Not really fist fight, but I was just like, what? No. And they were like, oh no. I'm like, no, but I'm a Leo.
you're a Leo.
No, but you're a Virgo. No, but I'm not. I
But
mean, because it's the last day.
it's the last day, but then this is why we don't even look at what day it was or what time it was. We look at what degree was it, because that's how we know. That said, there is a whole different astrology out there than the one we use. There's a 13th zodiac sign. There's a whole Joitish experience. There's like, it is not even Cancer season using another type of astrology, and they're not wrong. We're not wrong. It's all just a different interpretation.
It is. And it's a matter of perspective. Somebody was discussing something with me a while back and they were talking about it. And I thought, they've got this whole thing just wrong. And what I realized is they live in the Southern Hemisphere.
Totally different.
So guess who was wrong?
And then also procession, like things are moving. Like there's so much, which is why, again, I love it and we'll never be done looking at it.
That's why we'll always have this podcast, because there will always be questions.
Pretty much.
Forever and always.
Always, forever, forever.
Thank you.
Love you. Thank you.
Love you. Bye.